Hey there, Drew here. Welcome back to the Drew Saur coaching channel. This is your first time here, thanks for joining us. This channel is for those of us who want to have stellar careers, but a little less stress and if we can, a bit more fun. My job is to bring you ideas that'll help you look at your career in a new way. I promise that if you try them out, you'll start to see the professional world differently. And more importantly, they'll start to see you differently. So this video is part of my series on persuasive storytelling. Because ultimately, to get anything done in our career, we need other people. So the question we're trying to answer here is, can I convince other people to join me? And this video is another in my series on interviews. Because that is one of the most important places where your storytelling and your persuasion ability will make a difference. Because you're meeting somebody for the first time, they don't have a lot of background with you, and you have a very limited amount of time to convince them that you're the right person for the job. Now in the last video we talked about mistake number one, right? It's not about you. It's about whether or not you can solve their problem. So what I want to talk about today is, so what is that problem? How do you figure out what the real problem is? And most people start with a job description, right? Which is a okay version of what the problem is. It gives you the basic outline of what the job is, what the responsibilities are, what some of the tasks might be. But for anybody who's ever written a job description, which probably includes you, right? What you realize is that it's not necessarily the best document. Most of the time, the boilerplate comes from HR, so half of it are things that appear on every different job description. As a hiring manager, sometimes you take the time to do it. Sometimes there's just a lot going on. So you get a few basic bullets in there, you get the idea, and then you hope to sort it out in the interviews, right? So what you should assume is that every job description is kind of in the right direction, but doesn't really tell you the underlying problem. So let's take an example of a VP of engineering. Right, so there's a VP of engineering, you're in charge of all the software delivery, you're in charge of the product lifecycle and support. Okay, pretty standard stuff. But what's the actual problem, right? It could be that they're on old technology, right? And they need to completely transform the supporting infrastructure and go to a next generation technology. Okay, that needs a very specific type of person, right? Probably more of an architect, definitely technical skills are really important. That's a specific type of problem. Maybe it's a quality problem. Right? Maybe they don't have really good processes, there's a lot of bugs slipping through, the clients aren't happy, and they need somebody who can tighten up the ship. That's kind of personality number two. Or number three, maybe the team's just not functioning very well, right? Maybe they have a lot of, sort of old skills and they need to train them up. Maybe the relationships aren't that great. Well, now you need a people person, right? You need somebody who has a good network and who knows how to motivate and train people. And those are three different problems for the same job description. So what do? Right? What you can do are really two things, right? One is before and one is during. So before, do your homework, right? And you'd be surprised the number of people who do not do enough homework before interviews. But having done quite a number in my day, I could tell you a lot of people don't bother with the time. So you can make a very easy sort of differentiator for yourself if you simply do some homework. Read the articles about the company. Find somebody in your network to reach out to and figure out what are the top priorities, what are some issues, right? If you can come in with any sort of base knowledge, you'll have a sense of what kind of problem there might be. So that's the homework in the first place. The second thing you can do is ask good questions. And most interviews are them asking you questions. So if they don't give you the opportunity to ask questions on your own, what you can do is actually ask clarifying questions. And you can do this against almost any standard interview question. So let's take the one I used in the last video, which is, tell me about a time you dealt with a difficult coworker, you had a bad relationship, and how did you handle it? Now, when you think about the problem that they have, why are they asking that question? And there's just, say, as an example, three key groups, right? So there's within a team, right, which is team dynamics. There's within sort of the function, which is peer dynamics, or it's with clients, right, which would be sort of, again, client relationship piece. You can ask a clarifying question that helps you get insight into which of these you should tell. So again, tell me about a time you had a difficult relationship and what did you do about it? And you say, oh, that's great, I'd be happy to. I have a number of good stories. I'm curious, I've had relationships where I've had improvements made with clients. I've done that internally with my team, and I've also done it with some of the other executives that I work with. And I'm wondering which of those would be most valuable for you to hear about today. So I just gave you three options, again, team, peer, client. And what I'm doing is I'm waiting for you to give me insight. And hopefully what the answer is going to be is, actually tell me about a time with that client, because that's one of the things that we're dealing with right now. So we have a lot of upset clients that we're going to need to really work on those relationships. Two things happen there. One, you get some really good insight into what is the actual problem. And two, you now know which story you should tell. And like last time, in the previous video, you then connect the dots. Here's how I fix this client relationship, and that's why I'm so excited about the possibility of this role, because I believe I can do that for you. Right? So what you want to do, again, the tactic for today is use questions to clarify what the problem is. And the easiest way to do that is to think about a couple of options. For every story that you have, the difficult delivery story, the time you transformed this organization, the time you brought in a new training program and sort of transformed a team, whatever the case may be, think about how can you give the interviewer options and ask a clarifying question. Excited to tell you about this. I have a couple different stories I could tell you that I think would be valuable here. Which of these do you think would be most valuable for this position? And you're getting insight into what the problem is. So what happens if you don't do this? Well, you're telling the story that you think or you hope might work. What's wrong with that? Well, you're basically rolling the die, right? You tell a story. If they have client relationship problems and you talk about team dynamic relationships, oh, it's good that you do that, but that's not really my problem. So you just told me a 5 to 10 minute story that didn't really add to your ability to solve my problem because you were talking about the wrong thing. So as much as you can, make it a conversation. And if they're not necessarily interested in a conversation, ask a clarifying question so you can get some more insight in terms of which story to tell. So that's the idea. So it's the exercise. Again, do your homework, see what you can figure out about the problem before you get there. And number two, think of clarifying questions that you can ask that will help guide you to which of your stories you should tell in an interview. So there you go. Try it out. Let me know in the comments how it goes. And as always, growing your career is a journey, and it helps to have a partner. You can rope in a friend, you can hire a coach. And if you're interested in talking with me, feel free to go to drewsaur.com and we can schedule some time to chat. I look forward to seeing you next time.